Hey friends, welcome to my channel. My name is Angela. Today I have some room decor ideas you can create on a budget. Let's get started. For this first project, I'm taking one of these rectangular trays from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to remove that sticker and then add some painter's tape to the bottom to cover up that black. I want to spray paint this, but I do want to leave that black bottom there so it's seen as well. So I'm going to take some Rust-Oleum metallic spray paint, and this is, I think it's called Antique Bronze, but here's how it looks once it's spray painted. Love the color. It really goes nicely with my living room. And then I'm just going to take some ink black chalk paint by Waverly, and I'm just going to touch up these edges because I wanted the black to come up just a little bit higher so you could really see it whenever it's sitting on my bookshelf. And then I also take a chippy brush and very, very lightly add on some like dry brushing along the edges and then also in the center of my tray. You can hardly tell. This step is certainly not necessary if it's not an effect that you would like to do, but I thought it just added something extra with the black and tying it all together. So then I'm taking these 3 plastic craft bottles from Dollar Tree. I'm gonna take the lids off of them, and then I'm gonna use this faux leather ribbon from the Dollar Tree. This is the black one. And I'm going to wrap this around the tops of each of my bottles. My mom thinks that this looks like electrical tape. That's what she thought I had around the tops of these, and honestly, she's not wrong. It kind of does look like it, the way that it just like molds to the top there. I thought it was funny. So then I'm taking my black chalk paint again, and I'm gonna go around the top rim of all of the bottles because if you see those ones on the top there, it really looks kind of cheap if you just left it unpainted, and you can see that like clear plastic behind and above the faux leather ribbon that we have around the edge. So I think this just gave a more like a high-end, more store-bought look to it instead of a DIY project. So I made sure to cover up any of the hot glue that might have like seeped out the top, just got like the top of that ribbon. And then I also went on the inside where you could see the ribbon, like if you were looking down at the bottle, just to make sure it had like a nice finished look. You are going to be able to see that when it's sitting on the tray. So next I'm just going to take my bottles, place them evenly on my tray, and then I'm just going to take some greenery picks. I just like cut small pieces off of other picks that I had, and I'm just going to place one in each of the bottles. So I have 2 that are boxwood, and then the third one, I'm not really sure what that middle one is. It just came off of another floral pick that I had. And that's it for this one. Super easy. I think this is the easiest project in today's video, but I really love how modern and minimal this looks. So see how you can see the inside of those bottles at the top? If we had left that just the clear plastic, you would have been able to see the hot glue and it just would not have looked nice. So this gave it a nice finished look. If you are enjoying today's video, head on over to my channel and check out all of the other projects and inspiration that I have done. I enjoy making all things crafty, all things creative, and I have tons of inspiration for 2021. Don't forget to subscribe before you leave, and let's get back into it. For this next project, I'm taking one of these mesh baskets from the Dollar Tree. These come in black and white, but I wasn't sure what I was going to be making with this when I bought it. So I bought the white one, and ultimately I should have bought the black one. Actually, I don't even think my store had the black one when I bought this, but anyways, we're just going to paint it with a very thin light coat of black paint, any kind of black paint. I'm just using a house paint here because I don't want you to be able to see any of that white with what we're going to do to it. So I'm taking this black craft cord that I got from Hobby Lobby. If you saw my macrame video last week, you know I didn't really love this for macrame, but it does work nicely for other projects. So I'm just gonna hot glue this around the very bottom of my basket to start, and you want to use a very tiny amount of hot glue when you're doing this because of course this is mesh, it is wire, it's just gonna go right through there. So I just used the tiniest little amounts, and I made sure to push it up all the way to that edge so that whenever it's sitting on the floor or on any surface, you're not gonna see that wire basket underneath. And this is why I wanted to paint it black, so that if there are some little spots where you can see through, you're not gonna get that white showing through underneath, it will still be black. So I'm gonna take this and wrap it all the way around several times. I go maybe like 8 to 10 rows up with this black. And I learned as I was going that I didn't need to put the hot glue on like every surface that I was putting the cord down on. I did start using like less and less glue as I went up. So here you can see I have several rows done. I'm gonna cut that off. I ended it at the same place that I started so that this is gonna be like the clear back of my basket. And then I'm just taking this tan cord, same style, they're both 4mm craft cords, and I'm going to butt that right up against where I cut the black one, and we're gonna do 4 rows of this tan color just to give like a little added interest to the basket. And my initial plan for this was to use nautical rope that the Dollar Tree carries. And it's funny because my Dollar Tree has had nautical rope for like months and months and months. Every time I go in, I see it, I look at it, I don't pick it up. And then the other day when I went to pick it up for this project, of course, they no longer had it. So, I just think it's so funny how the Dollar Tree works sometimes. But this ended up working out just fine. It's obviously a lot thinner than that nautical rope is, so it took a little bit longer to do, but I really love the way this turned out. So then I had my 4 rows, is that 4? Maybe it's 3. Oh no, it's 4 rows of the tan on there. And then I just go the rest of the way up with my black. And when I finish the top of it, I'm not going all the way up and like covering that top lip of the basket. I'm going right underneath of that. And you'll see why here in a minute. So what we're making is a little plant stand. So I'm taking this 2 foot by 4 foot board. It's just like plywood that I got from Home Depot. It was like a 1/4 inch thick, and I'm just gonna cut an 11 by 11 inch square to go on top of our basket. And you can see I cut that down before I had added on my cording. But anyways, this is just scrap wood that I had laying around. It was actually something that my son was using to play with his army guys on, and you know, kids, after a week he was over it, didn't want anything to do with it anymore, so now it was my wood. But it worked out for me. So then I'm just going to take my cut piece of wood, and I'm going to use my antique Waverly wax, and I'm going to do like a combination of brushing it on with my chippy brush and then rubbing it in with my rag, because I love the effect that this gives with the chippy brush, but then like some areas might get a little heavy, and I'll just wipe it off with my cloth. And you could use any color cording that you wanted, or rope or yarn or whatever you want on this. You don't have to even like stain the top. You could paint it. You could do a circle on here instead of a square. Whatever works for you, you can make this your own. So then I'm just taking some E6000 and I'm putting it all the way around the top. So this is why I didn't want that cord to go all the way around the top there, because then you wouldn't have as tight of a bond with your E6000 and your wood. So you want it to stay on there nice and tight. So then I just set it where it needed to go, push down, and then I took some books that I had laying around, put them on top overnight so that it had a nice secure hold. And here's a look at how it turned out. I love how modern and minimal again this looks, and I actually think I would have preferred a circle top instead of the square, but I still think this looks great. What do you guys think? For this next project, I'm taking these little they're like MDF board letters that I got from Dollar General at Christmas time. They were $1 each, and I'm just marking off 3-inch sections. So I'm gonna cut this down into like little planks, and I'm just using my T-square to make sure I cut a nice straight line. And I'm gonna take this first one that I cut and use that as my guide to cut down 5 additional sections. This board was really thin. Like, it's a lot thinner than the boards that you would get or the signs that you would get from the Dollar Tree. It's probably like half that thickness, so I was a little concerned this might not work out, but it looks great in the end. Also, I apologize, my head is gonna keep getting in the way here because I changed my craft room around a little bit this weekend, and I have my camera in a different location, so I need to figure that out a bit because clearly my head is in the way. And girl, those roots need dyed. So then I'm just taking some 80 grit sandpaper and I'm scuffing up the surface because that red is gonna be a lot to cover and I don't wanna have to use like 5 layers of paint. I'm just gonna clean up all of my little surface area with my little vacuum. I know everyone loves the ladybug, but I kind of like my white little modern guy. Anyways, next I'm gonna take some masking tape and we're gonna cover up the backs of those holes because I wanna fill them in with some spackling. I don't wanna be able to see those holes. Then I'm gonna take my Ivory Paint by Waverly and we're just gonna give everything, I give everything 3 coats because some of that red was really difficult to cover up, and then some areas I even needed to go over with like a touch-up like 4th coat. So it definitely took a lot to cover this up. Next, I'm taking some giant craft sticks that I got from Walmart, and I just painted one side of these with the same paint, and I'm gonna use this to hold my boards together. So we're gonna make kind of like a shiplap looking sign. And you can see I still have my 6 boards here. I do end up cutting one of these off because I thought it ended up looking a little too long. So next I'm just taking a tiny little chippy brush and I'm taking a dark gray paint and I'm gonna use this to add some distressing all around the edges. I do it heavier, a little heavier around the edges, and then I do go back and add some in the center as well. And these tiny little chippy brushes are amazing. Melissa from All Things Crafty has suggested these and she loves these. So I had to pick some up and try them out for myself, and I absolutely love these. I will link them in my description box below because they are fantastic. You can find them on Amazon. So once I was happy with the gray, the dark gray there, I took my mineral with a like more flimsy chippy brush and I just went all over the rest of the area with this one, with this color. And my dog is back. Then I'm just gonna take some sandpaper and just kind of like blend it all together so it looks like it was meant to be there and there's no like harsh lines. Then I used my Cricut and I cut out the phrase spring vibes, and I'm going to add that to the top of my sign here. I want it to be overlapping these boards. I actually think I could have pulled it down a little bit farther, but I still love the way this looks. And I know a lot of people use the like hello spring, welcome spring, so I really wanted to come up with something different that I haven't really seen everywhere, so I thought spring vibes was the perfect thing. We're supposed to get another 6 inches of snow tomorrow, so give me all the spring vibes. We still have about 3 to 4 inches on the ground right now, so another 6 is not gonna be fun. I also really love mixing fonts when I do something like this. I just think it gives like an added detail and like more interest to the sign rather than having the same font for the whole thing. I will link the fonts that I used in the description box below as well. So next I'm going to take my X-Acto knife and I'm just going to like cut in between where those boards meet because I want this to look like it was always part of this board and not something that was added after the fact. And then I just take my little burnishing scraper there and make sure it's all pushed down and like wrapping around those boards. Next, I'm going to add in some florals. So I have these blooming branches from the Dollar Tree, and then also this lavender from Walmart, which is so beautiful. I absolutely love this. And now is where I cut off my bottom board because I thought there was just a little bit too much space to fill with the florals at the bottom. That's also why I could have brought my words down a little bit more, but I think the 5 words was the perfect size. So I just cut off little parts of my florals and I'm going to hot glue those down in place, just like coming like they're flowing from the right corner over the board. And then I'm going to add 2 little pieces off to the left as well. So I knew I wanted to add some ribbon to this, and I should have thought this through before adding my florals because I wanted to add like a strip to the top and a strip to the bottom. Well, now my florals are in the way, so that's going to create a problem. So now I have to take my heat tool, remove the florals that I just added so that I can put my ribbon down and then put my florals back on top of it. It ended up being just fine. Like, you really couldn't tell that I had to take those off, but I just was laughing at myself that I didn't think that through first. Which is a big problem with me whenever I'm crafting. I'm like a hurricane when I'm crafting. I make the biggest mess around me and then I don't think things through. But I feel like a lot of us are like that. Anyways, I'm taking this plant hanger that I got from the Dollar Tree. It comes with 3 of these chain links on it. We only need 2 because I'm going to use this as my hanger for the picture. So I'm going to cut it to the length I want and then put a generous amount of hot glue to hold it in place on the back. I'm also going to take these craft sticks and put those on top to secure it down as well. And here's a look at how this turned out. This is my favorite project in today's video. I just absolutely love everything about it. What do you guys think? All right, this last one, I am taking these foam dice from the Dollar Tree. I have 6 of them here, and I'm going to give them 3 coats of Waverly White chalk paint. These were a little difficult to cover all of that orange. So next I'm taking these giant poster stickers from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to cut out the letters to spell family. Also, I am just cracking up at myself on this part because you'll see I have 5 dice sitting there, but there are clearly 6 letters in the word family, and I did not realize this for quite a while. I knew I needed all 6 dice because that's how many I had, and for some reason I only painted 5 of them and didn't even think about it. So I was just cracking up at myself whenever I realized, but here I'm taking my mineral chalk paint and painting over the letters because I didn't want them to be black, and this actually took about like 5 coats of paint at least. Like, it took a lot to cover up those letters. But you can still see I clearly have all of my 6 letters that I need to spell family and still only 5 dice. So I still haven't figured that part out yet. Once I have all of these painted, finally with their 5 or 6 coats of paint, I just kind of peel around the edges because I realized if I started just like grabbing the sticker and pulling it, it was kind of ripping because of that paint and like how much paint I had to put on there. So then I'm just going to pick the best side of the dice that I want to be the front and just stick these down. Now you could use Mod Podge and go over it just to make sure these stay and last a long time. I didn't do that. I'm not too concerned about it. They seem to stick pretty well and I might want to change it up in the future, who knows. But then I'm taking some more of this black leather, faux leather ribbon from the Dollar Tree and I want to cut it down to make like some ticking stripes. So you can see I finally added my 6th dice there. Whenever I was adding the letters on, the one dice was still kind of wet, so I had finally just figured it out. But I'm just going to take my T-square and I'm going to cut these down. This step is not necessary, but because I wanted to add the ticking stripes, this was the best way I could think of to do it because I did try to paint them on, which is how I would normally go about adding these stripes, but because the dice were foam and the way I wanted it, I wanted to make sure that it looked like one solid line going across the entire thing. The paint just didn't really work. It was getting underneath of the tape. It was lifting up the paint. So it was just going to become a really big mess. So I stopped after the first one and didn't want to continue doing that method. But after I have my 2 thin strips cut and then I use the rest for the center one, I just hot glue the very bottom underneath of my first letter. And then I realized that hot glue wasn't going to work on these thin ones because it was going to be like too bulky and it would have seeped out and just not looked very good. So then I used Eileen's tacky glue and this worked out really well. It held the leather where I wanted it. And it didn't like create a mess outside of the ribbon. So I just did that all the way across and I did one at a time because I wanted to make sure the ribbon lined up exactly where I wanted it to on each dice. So once I'm done with that first thin row, then I'm going to take my hot glue and use it for the middle strip because this one's a lot thicker and I wasn't as concerned with the hot glue like coming outside of the ribbon. So that was fine. I just used that all the way across. Oh, and I need to touch up where I had initially tried to paint and the tape was lifting up my white paint. So I had to go back and touch up a few spots. But I knew if I had kept going with that method, it really was just going to turn out like a hot mess and I would have been even more frustrated and upset that I had kept going on trying to like tape it off and paint. I probably could have just added Mod Podge and then added my stripes, but I don't know. I really wanted to use this leather as well, so I thought this was just like a cool little element to add. So then I added all of that on. I added my third stripe, which was that thin one on the outside, and now I'm just going to cut them apart because I don't want them to actually be attached. I want them to be separate, but I also didn't want to add the stripes all the way around the sides of every dice. Once I have those all cut apart, then I'm taking some more of the Eileen's tacky glue and I'm just gonna like wrap those edges around so that it does look like it's wrapping around the dice, but it doesn't actually go all the way around. So I did have to like kind of hold this in place while it dried for a few seconds so that it would stay wrapped around like that. And that's it for this one. Here's a look at how it turned out. And that's it for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed these 4 room decor DIY projects. Let me know in the comments which one was your favorite, and I'll see you in the next one.